Hi, welcome back to the Gender Reveal Party. I'm Jay Pryor, your host, and today I can't even tell you how delighted I am to bring you this interview. Delight is the word for me around this interview. I haven't talked to my friend Wendi, once again, another friend of mine, very generous in giving me her time. Wendi is someone who identifies as a female and as a woman, but is very butch and a a very butch expression, like gender expression, in the way that she dresses and in her masculine appearance. And she's super hot and a lovely human being. And Wendy is also a musician. And she and I have a love of music in common that, again, I'm just delighted by this. So I'm going to just shut up and let you hear for yourself this powerful interview. And I'm joyful and grateful to introduce you to another friend of mine, Wendy Moore O'Neill. Welcome to the gender reveal party where we reveal gender, not baby sex parts. And today, one of the best things about this so far is I just get to talk to my friends. And so I am so excited that my friend Wendy, and I knew you as Wendy O'Neill. Congratulations on your marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah, because we haven't talked like since
I
you got
know.
married, right? How
I
long have you
know.
been married now?
Gosh, it's been 7 years.
7 years. Congratulations.
It
That's
feels like yesterday.
fantastic. It does. it it seems like yes, we've coming up on eight. We just celebrated 18 years, and you were at my wedding.
I know it was the best wedding.
Oh, thank you.
That was
People
such
tell
a.
us it was a good party. It really was.
It really
It
was.
was a really good party.
That's the best wedding I've ever been to beside mine.
Thank you. Thank you. People tell us that. We really did plan a wedding where we had so many queers, like it was the biggest queer wedding. And then we just dumped our families on top of it and our friends, our other friends from church, right? Remember it was so fun. God, it was great. It really was very cool. Very, very cool. So welcome to the gender reveal party.
The
I'm so
party
happy to have you here. And we've been friends a long time. And one of the reasons I thought of you is when we first were hanging out back in the day when we were much younger people, you were a femme presenting human. In fact, I was just looking at the wedding pictures and you were in a full on gown, right? I mean, we were all decked out, right? And now you're a much more masculine presenting human. And this confuses straight people. It says straight people a lot. And so we're trying to enlighten them about really about gender. So I so appreciate you coming on and talking to us. I'd love to just have you introduce yourself and share with our audience.
I'm just really grateful that you're doing this, Jay. Um, yeah, I mean, I figured that was part of what we would talk about
Hmm.
is my the way my gender has grown and evolved.
Hmm.
Um, well, yeah, my name is Wendi Moore O'Neill, and I am a daddy's girl and a mama's boy. And um, I live in the place I was born and raised, New Orleans, Louisiana. I live next door to my mama and with my wife, Mandisa. And I think of myself as a freedom singer.
Hmm.
Um, and my work, my purpose is to share uh, practices for how we survive living in resistance to white supremacist, capitalist, heteropatriarchal colonization. Share practices for how we survive living in resistance to oppression.
Yeah.
And that's just what I do.
And it's through music, right?
Well, I share freedom songs.
Right.
So like
Freedom
my
song.
favorite freedom song is um oh Lord, Lord, I got her right. Oh Lord, Lord, I got her right. Oh Lord, Lord, I got her right. I got her right to the tree of life.
Mm.
And
Mm.
That's
That's
my.
so beautiful. Thank you for singing. Yeah, I'm so glad you sang.
Well, I noticed you're a song talker too. I
I'm a
noticed.
song talker, big time, big
Yeah.
time. Yeah, I am, and that's another. But I mean, that's when I thought of you, it's like, yes, I have this experience of you as femme going to a masculine presentation, but like what you do now is what I want people to know about, and what I keep making sure people understand is our gender is like this much of who we are. Like, and people who are listening that can't see me, I have a tiny little fingers up like an inch, right? I mean, it's like, well, that's it's not that much of who we are. I mean, it is who we are, but it's not like it doesn't lead us. Or we are musicians, we are creators, we are teachers, we are, and you, my friend, have always been a musician, and that, well, that we
Oh,
share
thank
that
you.
love of music. That is
I
just,
love
for me,
music.
I can't not have music in my life.
I really don't think of myself as a musician, Jay.
Mm. Oh my
I know,
God.
but well, I am somebody who knows a lot of songs,
Mm.
and I just can't help but share them. Like they insist on
Well,
being
that
released.
voice is an instrument to me. Your
Thank
voice
you.
is an instrument to me, and you
What I
have a
mean
beautiful
is,
voice and your soul in it.
I what I know about is what I am is I think of myself as a song leader.
Hmm.
Like I'm willing to share the songs that I know and encourage people to sing together, sing
Yeah.
congregationally, you
Yeah.
know, because I
Right.
think there's something to what happens when you feel the collective power of a group, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm into. And I
Hmm.
just like for that to be not to be confused with being able to make a certain sound or be in key. Being in key is not as important to me
Right.
as charging the air with my belief.
Right.
And that
Nice.
we do that with each other,
Hmm.
feeling each other, feeling our collective power,
Yeah.
affirming our decisions to be free.
Mm.
That's what I'm wanting to use sound to do, you know?
Right. 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 And you have that intersection of queer and black and gender bending, and like you're intersecting that freedom. That's one of the things that for me is so powerful, is that in all of those intersections you're bringing that conversation.
And and honestly, I'm just being who I showed up in the world as,
Right.
and that's actually kind of like how I've heard you talk about is an extension, it's an expression of my people and the people who raised me, the people I come from, the values, the culture, the traditions. I'm just a product of that. And so this is my way of how I do that, how I contribute to carrying that forward. I think of myself as a kind of a jolly
Hmm.
or a griot.
Hmm. Can you give us definitions for those? What's that mean? A jolly or a
Um,
griot?
a jolly or a griot is um, it's a title
Mm.
for a role in a community, in a society.
Mm.
So a lot of times people will say a griot is a storyteller,
Hmm.
and true griots tell stories, but it's much more than that. Being a keeper of the culture, the traditions, the ways of being
Mm.
for a people. So
Yeah.
the jolly is something that you're trained to be from. It's a title that's passed on from like father to son or uncle to nephew, and it's the kind of thing you're trained to be from the time you're 5 years old,
Yeah.
you know and so and there's a whole culture and set of traditions in service to making sure that training happens. And like I came into the word jolly as opposed to griot,
Hmm.
which is from the Mende people,
Mm.
from the Mali Empire,
Wow.
not the country of Mali, but the empire
Hmm.
of Mali, which is different, the beyond the colonial borders,
Hmm.
there on the western coast of the continent of Africa.
Right.
And I met this dude when I was living in DC, Amadou Koyate,
Okay.
who's an amazing djembe player and kora player. And he is the 150th generation of Jolly in his family. You heard me?
Yeah. 150th. Wow.
Generation. Not the
Generation.
150th
Person. 150th
generation.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a tradition that has lasted a long time.
Yeah.
And he's holding the culture and traditions, the songs, the stories, the history of his people.
Mm.
And that's what I attempt to do. I attempt to remember what I've been told about the history of my people, and my people are people who were involved in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, and the Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE, and they did a lot of voting rights movement work, and work to actualize the potential of the Constitution. So, like the freedom rides.
Gosh, wouldn't that be something if we actually I want to say that. Could you say that again?
To actualize
I want you to say that word.
That's what we're trying to do.
Actualize the potential of the Constitution. That just, my mind just freaked out. God, what would be possible if we actually actualize the potential of the Constitution? I've just been always mind blown by the Constitution in terms of its ability, what's possible inside of, really possible inside of we the people, creating a more perfect union all the time, like more perfect. Yeah, you just freak me out. That's
I do think it's great. Yeah. I think to actualize it would require, I'm not much of a believer these days in the nation state.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and I have come to see myself as an abolitionist. And so I think in order to carry out the intentions of my parents and foreparents, to actualize the Constitution, that we would actually have to break it and make something else, you know,
right. Yeah,
make something new. And
it
so
sure feels like we're on the way to that.
I think it is.
I mean, it does. It feels like I'm not. People ask me all the time if I'm scared. I'm not. I'm not scared. For one thing, I'm very resourceful.
I know that. I know that's right.
Like, I know I'll figure something out. I'm not concerned about that. But I also really believe that I have a greater faith and a greater arc above all of it. That there's something else that's. I mean, I'm a very spiritual person, and for me, that's like always a kind of an overarching arc over all of it. Is just I have a lot of faith that things are working out for us, and we'll figure it out, and that it needs to be. If it breaks, it's because it needs to break.
I believe that too, and I think faith is so important to be able to follow the spirit, to do what. And I'm not saying spirit like in a religious sense.
Me neither.
Like do what feels like it needs doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, I so appreciate what you just said. Like that is, to me, what it means to be free.
Same.
And like there's so much more. I'm afraid. Look, I am scared. I'm going to tell you. But I'm not, but my fear doesn't make my decisions.
Right.
And I feel like there's so much more. It's so worth it.
Right.
To keep pushing, past what I'm afraid of, for like all of the possibilities for being whole and and alive with other whole alive people,
Yep.
and the earth and the beings that populate the earth, that is so much more worth it to do what I don't know, what I haven't seen,
Hmm.
you know what I mean, than it
Hmm.
is what I'm scared of letting go. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just worth it and
Absolutely.
unsatisfying to
Yes.
do something else.
Right.
Jay, I'm so excited that I just can't stop talking. I'm a talker
No,
anyway.
keep talking. It's all right. People are listening. We have a lot to you have a lot to share, and I appreciate that. I do want to, since we're at the gender reveal party, will you tell us how'd you get from being in a dress? And those of you who are listening on podcasts, 'cause we have podcast listeners and people watching a video. So podcast listeners can't see how fly your hair looks right now.
And I'm feeling it, Jay.
And
Ooh,
I
I'm
mean, you are
like,
feeling it. You look
let
fly,
me put them over
fly, fly,
next
fly. Look
side
at
of
that.
you.
Oh, look at that. Oh man.
You're
So you
welcome.
got you got to see the hair is fly, and it's a very butch haircut, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a dude's butch haircut, right? And
Yes.
so,
And I got my
and
little
you did
bit.
not look like that when we got married. So how'd you
Yeah.
go from there to there? How'd you go from
Part of it, I don't know.
right,
Like the truth is, I just been living my life,
right?
and it's only, I feel like when people ask me this, I'm like, well, you know how you have a leaf, how you have a tree. Well, the tree don't start off looking like the tree, you know. It might start off looking like
Starts
an,
out looking like an acorn.
and then little by little, next thing you
Right.
know, you got you with some
Right. That's
shade.
exactly how I feel. I mean, because, people I've had, and recently I had somebody who was surprised by the fact that I went off testosterone. Because in my world, I've always been said I was a genderqueer. I've always been like, I'm out as a trans person. I got one foot in woman, the whole nine. But I also remember how important it was to me to not have somebody she me, like to have somebody said she to me. I was like, I want to pass as a dude, and I want to. When gay men started hitting on me down on 15th Street and Washington D.C. It was like, yes, I was
Pretty
there.
high marks. Yeah,
And
that was
now it's like if people identify at all that I have anything female or queer going on, I'm like, yes, because I
because you're into the queer part.
right, well, I'm to the queer, and I'm into the I go being off of testosterone. And I was just talking this to somebody the other day. The nuances cannot be described. You cannot. It's one of those experiences that you have to experience. But being off testosterone has me uber conscious of how people treat me like a dude versus I'm a participant in it.
Mhm.
Right. It just seems like I have a little distance from it. And I've got my hips and my butt reminding me that I'm, female bodied and I'm in a lesbian relationship. All
Yeah,
that
all
all
that.
that all that but it's interesting. So I'm with you in the sense that I just kind of morphed into this place where now I'm non-binary, and that whole world of kind of a half a person, half man half woman kind of person.
And Disa just came in the room and she's
Yay. Does she
getting
want to say
ready to
hi?
head out. So
Do
if
you want
you
to say
hear
hi?
her, can you say hi?
Do you want to say hi?
You want to come pop
On a
in?
podcast.
Let's see. We're on a podcast.
Hey
Hi,
Jay,
Mandisa. It's so nice
nice
to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
come.
Can you? I don't know. Okay. Hey,
Oh,
nice to meet you.
hi. It's nice to meet you. I hope I get to meet you in person someday.
We were just talking about, like, honestly, part of what I think, because when I was at the wedding, I remember, like, I was a guest of Myaja's,
Mhm.
who's still a very dear friend.
Right.
And and part of what I think is, as I've been loved by people who know me, you know,
Hmm.
it's like it's become more and more okay for me to look like myself.
Yeah.
But I don't think that means that I really enjoyed being femme.
Sure. Yeah.
And I really liked that my film didn't have a lot of like I've always been kind of a delicate flower,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a very sensitive being. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
sensitive person,
Right.
but I've never been fragile.
Right.
And I've always thought of my womanhood kind of like Sojourner Truth,
Mm.
like, and she was like, I can tote a barge, I can lift that bale,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and
I got
I
stuff to
hope,
do. Right.
right,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and I've always, to me, that's been an important part of what it means to be woman. And the ways that my womanhood or femininity haven't been seen by the world always or recognized, I thought was just based in racism and kind of white supremacist notions of femininity
Right.
that didn't see my femininity,
Yeah.
my womanness. And so that's what I thought. And
And I think to some degree that's true. Like, I mean, I have the experience that when I was, because as you have to go through that year back in the day, you don't have to anymore. Back in the day, you had to live as the opposite gender without hormones. So I lived for a year in DC and I
mhm,
passed in terms of like people thinking I was male everywhere except for with black men.
mm,
Black men were like, I see you. Like you're
mhm.
just a strong like so what you don't have any hair, it doesn't matter. Like I see your they always like I never passed with black men. And so there is there's something different, I think, about
There's a race element.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
It's like in the black community you can have short hair, you could be strong and be a woman. In the white people are like, no, 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 that's if you're not feminine, then you're not woman.
right. And that, well, I guess there's a wider range of what femininity looks like and has in it.
Right.
And
Agree.
there's and that comes from less of a commitment to the dictates of white supremacy around
Yeah.
gender norms,
Yep.
patriarchal gender norms, and just the ways that patriarchy is informed by white supremacy.
Right.
So I feel like and I have always loved butches,
Me too.
always
Me too.
love butches. I love butches.
I do too. I love butches. I do
The
too.
best, the
They're
best.
like just they're insta friends for me. Like as soon as I meet a butch, it's an insta friend. It's like, oh hey. That's the only thing I don't like about that. I love my beard so much, but the thing I don't like about it is it takes me out of that the instantaneous connection that you have with another butch. Where it's like, oh, I see you.
Yeah, yeah. And I so love that about your story, the gender reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thanks. So you got a chance to see the show.
yeah, where you talked about your love for butches, like the first butch that you saw, and just being like, mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah,
like in a trance. I just followed her.
I love that. I
Yeah.
know that experience.
Mm,
And the way you talked about Stone Butch Blues,
mm,
that's my experience.
mm.
And I also learned, like, I had an experience with NGLDF um, around that same time.
Huh.
I wasn't at Dallas, I was at Detroit,
Okay.
but I went to a leadership development program
Nice.
they did for young people. And for me, that really grew out of some of what I was reading in Feinberg's Stone Butch Blues, and just recognizing myself in that. And
Yeah.
I recognized myself as femme in a be and that was a transgression of patriarchal gender norms,
Yes.
because I knew I didn't look like what a feminine person was supposed to be assigned to.
Right.
And I like the defiance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like I don't know how to describe it in words, but the tension, I
Mm-hmm.
guess,
Mm-hmm.
between that I experience between like in butch femme energy.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that shit. I eat it up.
I do too. I do too. And I can't. I tried to tell my listeners that I had somebody the other day be like, "Could you give us more definition?" I'm like, "No, like you can't define that. You can't define the butch femme dance. You can't define that tension. That like whenever I was a little butch and high femme, I'm 18 years old. I couldn't not blush. And I've seen that happen amongst and we're like 18-year-old boy, like little boys with this high femme or something. It's so silly. It's the dumbest thing ever, but I couldn't not do it. Like I can still, I had Miss April on, we'll have a show with her. And she made, I blushed on the show. I'm still blushing. I'm 55 years old. I'm still blushing. Like, what is that? But it's gorgeous and it's beautiful and it's something that only we understand. So I'm not gonna explain it to y'all.
It's good feeling.
It's a good feeling. It's a
good
very
feeling.
good feeling. A very, very good feeling.
And my wife came and sat next to me.
Nice.
And now I'm blushing.
Right.
And I think that I think that through the years, it's just, I met her, and when I met her, she's the most radiantly beautiful woman I had ever met.
Nice. And I love that.
And the fact that she expressed any level of desire for me. I don't know if
I was gonna say, because you are a fine looking human being. People who can't see you, I'm like, this is a gorgeous human being that we're talking.
I should dare to love her. She stopped myself from loving her.
See? And I was just like, I don't know. I think I was just like popcorn, just like poof.
Poof.
I started looking like this. And I think it's just, I wanted to look like the butch I wanted her to have. I think I had already been, it wasn't like a thought though. That makes it sound like it was a thought. It just emerged.
Right. Yeah.
And and she's not, my wife does not identify as femme.
Right.
And she's like, I'm not into
labels.
Labels, right? Or
that's how Jessica was. Jessica didn't identify as femme except for hanging out with y'all back in the day. Jessica never really. And then she kind of took that back in because we went to so many butch femme events and things like that. And she's always hanging out with the girls and doing a femme swap stuff and all that. But she never really identified as femme either. Because the whole label thing, she didn't want to deal with it. So
that's exactly what Mandisa's saying. I don't know if you can hear her. Wait, let me see. Okay, she doesn't want to be on camera.
That's all
but
right.
If you could see how radiantly beautiful she is.
Oh, and I've seen pictures. This woman is, I know.
I mean,
right. Your wedding photos are gorgeous. Right.
We've been together now for almost 13, it'll be 13 years in January.
Nice.
And Jay, she just, next thing I knew, I grew a dick. I just grew a dick. And
I love you so much. You just freaked everybody that's listening.
I'm so sorry.
That was the best. No. It's not freaking me out. It's the best. Believe me. I understand. Believe me. I understand. Without testosterone, you don't even need it.
I don't identify as a dude.
No.
Or as trans, although I understand that I transgress gender norms.
Right. Right.
And I live in, and I so appreciated you telling your story
Mhm,
of moving back home, because that's what I've done.
mhm.
I've moved back home, and it's a good size. New Orleans is a city
It's a
that's
little bit big.
right. Exactly.
I
But
moved to a town of 100,000.
that's a difference. I'm not trying to make it the same.
I know, I
But
know.
what is similar, New Orleans is a big little town.
Right. Yeah. And your people are your people. Like you move back to your people, you're gonna be with your people.
And
You
New
don't.
Orleans is a place where only for 16 years has it been populated by transients, you know?
Right.
Like New Orleans is a place where I am held responsible for what my parents did.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
people remember your grandparents.
Right.
People people speak to me because they know what my parents did.
Right. It's like my dad being the mayor for 30 years in a small town. Like you can't not
Exactly.
know people. People and that whole I do that bit in that thing where it's like, which one are you? Because they can tell I'm a Pryor. They know they know by my face who I belong to and what that like they know my whole lineage there. They just can't figure out because they would know me as female. So they
I
see with
love
the
that
beard, like,
section when you said
who are
that,
you? Which one are you?
and the different ways that you said that you were Janet.
Yes.
That was so beautiful,
Oh,
Jay.
thank you. Thank
And
you.
the
Those
way
are true
something,
stories.
I could tell.
Absolutely true stories. Yeah.
I could tell.
Yeah.
That's you being a griot.
Oh,
That's
thank you.
you, telling the story of not just yourself, but your people.
That's for me. That's what's and I did have somebody tell me one time who watched the show. He said it really comes through the love you have for your small town and for your family. I'm like, oh God, I hope so, because I don't want them to think I'm making fun of them or that even though I experienced trauma there, that I don't honor and appreciate and respect my familial roots. And my dad was the mayor of that town for 30 years, and it was I was our lives. So um I want to be honoring of that.
I
But at the same
totally
time, there's a bunch of funny shit comes out of it. So,
that's, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, and I also feel like I'm
so
not the only traumatized person. I mean, we're living through the same shit. We all know.
right. Well, and that's another thing is I want to part of my acknowledgement of the show was not just the trans piece, but being a female child in communities like that. Like I know, I mean, I want to interrupt that conversation too, because that's also a thing that, in my community, we didn't talk about any of that. Like we're not going to talk about that, and
We don't
so
talk about it here, but we do. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Like we do, but we don't. I mean, and we're also Southern.
right.
So there's a lot that's said in a mm-hmm.
Hmm. Well, and the
And
sad part for me is I remember a situation, at least one in particular, where a young woman brought up that she had, had an encounter with an older parent type person and was not believed and was shamed and was, and there was a conversation about her being mentally ill and, all this stuff. And it was like, regardless of whether I at the time really grasped that what I was taking in, I'm very clear that we were all given that message. You don't talk about it.
well,
You
and
don't
I
say
feel
it.
like it's no oppressive dynamics gets maintained by good graces, you know,
Thank you.
like oppressive dynamics get maintained by violence.
Right. And we in the Midwest operate on politeness. Like if you're not polite, that's the biggest shame your family experiences. I'm not
I
kidding
totally
about that.
understand.
You could
That is,
you could get the shit kicked out of you. You could beat the shit out of somebody else, but you better be polite to that neighbor and help her in with her groceries, and you better be polite. Like you're not polite. We are shamed. I mean, shamed. It's insane, and that's how they deal with everything.
oh, I understand it. I
Yeah.
understand. I also spent some time in Mennonite community.
Mm.
So you said Lawrence, Kansas, and I spent some time with some Mennonites,
Yeah.
so I understand the way shame works.
Mm.
I also understand the way uh I I understand politeness.
Mm.
I am from a Methodist, but my family is AME,
Mm.
Methodist Episcopalian, and shame, and my mother identifies as Catholic,
Wow.
and so
So
shame
you
is
got the
one
whole
of the
dose of Catholic right
primary.
there. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Oh oh
yeah.
yeah. and and
Catholics major in guilt. That's the
yeah,
whole thing about that, man.
and I feel like there's a connection to this gender conversation because um we don't like to talk and I love my family's culture, you know,
Hmm.
and I have a great deal of respect for it. And that includes what I know about how we use shame
Mm.
and to survive the violence of these oppressive conditions we're living in, you know,
Yeah.
because shame is one of the things that we use to keep each other in our place, you know, and that's supposed to keep you safe, you know. And I feel like there's a way that, and we don't talk much about it, but I actually learned from Mennonites who were challenging gender dictates and they call themselves the Pink Minnows,
Mm.
and they
Nice.
have been working to broaden the the interpretation of what it means to be Christ-like,
Wow.
you know. And they've been challenging homophobia and the ways that people who are survivors of sexual assault, especially childhood sexual assault, are treated. And they talk about the connections between the ways that uh, survivors of childhood sexual assault are often, like how homophobia and transphobia are often used to keep people, to punish people for for fighting back
Yeah.
and surviving and speaking out loud about their experiences. And so I think that that's something like what you're talking about. That's an important thing. And so I have found that my just willingness to just follow my heart and what my spirit decides to look
Right.
I've never felt as confident. Like, I think that that's been very threatening to some people I be with,
For
you
sure.
know,
Yeah.
and including some people would rather I would just transition into being identifying as a man
Right.
when
Right.
I don't
Pick a side.
love my womanhood.
Pick a team.
No, and I do.
I'm like, I
I
picked the
have
queer team.
right.
The
That's
one
my
right in the
team.
middle. That's my team.
Exactly.
The human one. Right.
And
Yeah.
I actually believe, I feel like I'm a woman,
Yeah.
and I enjoy being a woman, and I like pussy.
Right. Yeah.
And
That I feel more like a lesbian than I've ever felt in that way. I'm like, that's right. I used to be a lesbian.
and
That's
I love
right.
and I noticed that I used to work for a Mennonite organization,
Hmm.
and some of my gender expression shifted,
Hmm.
I think most sharply while I worked for them.
Mm. Yeah.
And I had
Because
to
you had the
sign
freedom to, right? I mean, it's
no,
part of
because I
that
had to sign a paper that said
that said you
that,
couldn't.
right.
And so, and I, in my coaching world, I always teach what you resist persists. It's like, tell me not to, and then watch me do it. All right.
Well,
Tell me I can't, and then watch it happen. All right. Or push against it. It's going to come at me
that's
stronger.
exactly,
That's
and I think
always
that's
how it's
what
going to come
happened.
out. And you talked about being the more, that's threatening to some people. And what I find is the more authentic I am, that authenticity is threatening to people in general. Like it's just threatening to people all the way around. like like
Right.
just being authentic is scary for people. And but what I've found, and I'm so grateful for me starting out in that psychiatric unit, because starting out a psychiatric unit when you're 18 years old, you've already done something that is taboo. Like you've already done something that people are shamed by. And I was like, so I did some time in the psych unit. I was just like out about that. And for me, that and then coming out as queer at that young age, I've always just been like, oh, I understand that I get more freedom the more authentic I am, that I get real people in my life the more genuine I am, and that people who aren't that genuine kind of, I freak them out and they stay away from me. So I figured that out pretty early on, and then it's always just been this journey of then me figuring out, well, what's the next level of authenticity, because it's like an onion, you're just peeling away all the things that you've piled on yourself, to the point where, I feel now better than I ever have, and I'm more like myself when I was a kid now than I've ever been.
Yeah.
I'm riding my bike, I'm singing, I'm doing stuff that I've always had joy doing,
Oh, Jay.
that I kind of, you kind of cover that up with being a grown up and doing life and all those
Mhm.
things. But for me, it's just another layer of authenticity. Like for me, not to do music is inauthentic. It's like that doesn't
Mm,
even make sense.
right.
That doesn't even make sense. Like I have to be doing music at some point in my life because I love it. It's part of who I am. So
I, I identify with what you're saying so much.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
it's brilliant.
and I also find the people in my life, like there's so many people, I find more people who can run with it
Run with it.
than who can't.
Or inspired by it. That's
Right.
the other thing, is I get to make a difference for people just by being myself. Like I've had so many people that just, I get a phone call out of the blue. My kid just came out. You're the first person I thought of because I've always been out everywhere. I'm just making a difference. Those of us that are out and just authentic, we just get to make a difference just by being us. That's
And I
so
just
cool.
love that. Don't you? I That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
He's just sitting right here.
It's really nice. So we're coming up on almost an hour we've been chatting.
Oh
So
my gosh.
I
This
know, isn't that crazy?
it flew by.
Um, I have, first of all, where can people find you if people are looking to look into your work and your
Well,
music?
I do have a website that I really need to give more attention to.
Yeah,
It's called my work is called Jaliya Consulting.
nice.
So it's JALIYAH
Okay,
in the word consulting. And Jaliya is the culture and tradition of the Jolly.
right.
That's my rough translation.
I love it.
And it's W so it's just www dot, www.jollyconsulting.com.
Okay.
And the is it .com? Yeah, that's oh, it's been so long since I didn't told anybody about that. No,
I
but
don't know.
if you look me up, Wendi Moore O'Neill,
Hmm.
it should connect you to that. I also did have a website for a film that I made
Oh,
with
cool.
my friend Ada McMahon, and the film is called This Little Light,
Nice.
where we do something kin to what you did,
Mm,
the gender reveal um, show that you did,
yeah,
and just
nice.
kind of tell the story of an experience that I had. And
Okay,
so if you um, look up this little light film.com,
okay, great. And
that,
we can link all that to we'll put that all in the show notes and stuff like
and
that.
then I also am now, really since the pandemic, I've been working with an organization I've been a part of for almost its entire 30-year existence, called Southerners on New Ground,
Okay.
or SONG.
Mm,
And we are an abolitionist organization of queers, Southern queers,
nice.
who we work to build, connect, train grassroots organizers to win abolitionist reforms, not just in the big cities or on the coasts, but wherever we call home
Sure.
here in the South and in
Nice.
small towns.
Right on.
And so you can find me at Southerners on New Ground.
Nice.
Um, and there are a whole bunch of us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, who are just
Yeah.
like you, Jay.
I love that.
And freedom loving radicals
Love that.
who organize ourselves, to live free from fear.
Beautiful. Would you leave us with a song?
Yeah, let's see. This is a song that's been in my spirit lately. And my teacher says any song can be a freedom song.
Agree.
What makes something a freedom song is the interpretation of the singer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my song for when I feel like I done already stepped out. And in the walk, I find myself being more afraid than I thought I'd be.
Mm.
And this is how I stay kind of rooted in my decision to be free. So I learned it from my coach, Che Ware. I have decided to walk in freedom. I have decided to walk in freedom. I have decided to walk in freedom. No turning back, no turning back. Though fear may find me, I still choose freedom. Though fear may find me, I still choose freedom. Though fear may find me, I still choose freedom. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back.
Beautiful. Thank you, my friend. I'm
Oh,
so blessed to have had you on the show.
thank you for having me. Thank you for doing your work.
Oh, thank you.